So, we've got about 10 minutes for questions. We've covered quite a lot of topics there, and it really, it'd be great if you have anything that you want to pick up on. So, we've got a roving mic, Daniel on the left. Anyone?
Always the far corner.
Hi. I'm just wondering, seeing as the big publishers go to such an effort to put up the paywall, why did they then let you self-archive?
So there are lots of answers to that, and a lot of this is history. So we're lucky that people started doing self-archiving before the major sort of paywalls actually came into existence. So there's kind of already tradition there. There are disciplines where this just wasn't an option in both maths, high energy physics and astronomy. The community's just said this is going to happen. And when the community says this is going to happen, publishers don't have a lot of choice. And the other is actually there's some evidence, well, there is no evidence that it actually does any damage to a publisher's business. There's lots of claims, there's lots of people presenting data that may or may not be relevant, but there's no actual evidence that it does any damage to business. And there's some evidence that it actually drives traffic to the publisher websites. So there's an interesting case. Taylor and Francis have an imprint called Routledge, I think, and they actually decided to do a pilot where they looked at, in library science, I think, making it possible for people to self-archive immediately on publication, so to make things immediately available, no embargoes, no nothing. And they actually found it was easy. They were getting better quality papers. They found it easier to get reviewers, and they generally thought they were getting more out of it than they were losing. So the lifeblood of a publisher in the modern world is traffic to the website, and so there are real advantages. But the other side of it is that the community has said, no, we're going to do this. The community and funders and governments have said, no, if you want to publish our work, that's fine, and we're going to continue paying subscriptions in the at least the short to medium term. But we want to be able to do this. You don't want to play by those rules? Don't publish our stuff.
Hi, my question is for Joe. I know a lot of the big journals, they pay a decent honorarium for publications. IISS just down the road, they pay something like $700 for a 2,000 word piece. So my question is, how would open access be able to attract a lot of the best publications that might be looking for a honorarium? And if they would still be able to pay this honorarium, how do you think they'll be able to fund themselves? Because, for instance, in the case I just talked about, IISS would pay a honorarium of around $700 for a 2,000 word piece, but then they would sell the same piece, the same 2,000 word paper, for something like £10. And they have thousands of subscribers, so potentially they earn a lot more than they get. So how would this model be able to be improved upon by open access? Just thinking. Thank you.
Cool. I was put on the spot, but I actually didn't know that there was. Is this a peer-reviewed article that's been given an honorarium?
No, I don't think in that particular instance it's peer-reviewed, but I think there are several other instances. I know the U.S. Army, for instance, they use the peer review process and they pay a very decent honorarium as well. In fact, better than the IISS one. So I don't necessarily think it's restricted to peer-reviewed or non-peer-reviewed ones.
Okay. I mean, there are disciplines. And it's more common, as I understand, in the humanities for review articles of certain types, that they get commissioned and that there is an honorarium or a payment for those. It's actually extremely rare across the whole of scholarship. It doesn't exist at all in the sciences. It's just completely unknown in the sciences, which is where all the money is, interestingly. So the short answer is no, that probably wouldn't continue in that model, although there might be other business models that would support or attract, make it worth paying for that kind of content. But also bear in mind where that money is coming from. So that money that's being used to pay those honorarium is coming out of your library budget. The bottom line is it's important to realise there is plenty of money in the system. There's $15 billion spent annually by universities globally to publish on the order of about 2 million to 3 million objects. There's plenty of money to pay for whatever system we choose to have. We just actually need to sit down and make a decision about how to do it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Can I just add to just following on from Cameron's point, I think that the really frustrating thing in open access is that we have all of the technologies that we need. We have the digital repositories, we have the ability, we have open source software, we have kind of automated typesetters, all the things that can make this labour really quick and really affordable. The problems that we particularly encounter in the humanities are social and cultural problems, this kind of cultural embeddedness of a very kind of old-fashioned historical idea that the print-bound kind of object of the individual kind of journal that is only a certain number of pages because when it was started a long time ago, printers could only afford it to be a certain number of pages, they could only afford a certain amount of postage, for it to go to subscribers. So the challenge of overcoming those long entrenched views, I think are one of the biggest challenges that we have to try and overcome.
Just a short question to Caroline, actually. You were talking about your colleague who doesn't sign the copyright form.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very interesting idea that the copyright belongs to the author, and that you're signing away your copyright. I mean, is your colleague prepared to share that form with him? I mean, you were saying that he modifies it in such a way.
It's probably already on his website, actually. I can ask him. He's not the only person. He's the only person I've met who's an early career researcher who's admitted to that. But I've met a senior professor who works in a different area who has never in his entire career signed one of those copyright transfer agreements. He either has flatly refused to sign it or he's amended it and the publishers similarly haven't noticed and he's signed what he was prepared to sign where he maintains copyright. So they can have his article and he can have his article and go and publish it elsewhere. But I think you're absolutely right. I think these kinds of strategies and tactics should be shared. I'm very interested in looking into that and sharing what information we can because I think early career researchers in my experience, we're just so timid. We don't have any control in the process. We can't refuse to be published by the big publishers because we know that we won't get a job or we won't get funding or a postdoc or whatever. So I think we do need to share resources in that way.
So you do a Google search for Spark author addendum. You'll find an example of this. For those of you, it's as I think Caroline said, it's definitely worth a try. You probably get away with it in humanities and social sciences because they don't look. Publishers in STM are a little bit wise to this and may well push back, but it's definitely worth a shot. But those forms are out there and available.
Yeah, and I'd also recommend speaking to your open access librarians as well because they are in a good position to advise. So have a read through those documents, and then when you get your CTA, send it to your librarian, and they can advise on the best bits to edit and change, and get your rights back.
But I think it's really important to realise that, and someone made the comment that it's often it can be the case that actually the university owns the copyright rather than the author, but the sort of the point is that they talk about copyright as following the pen across the page. The instant something is created, there's a copyright in that. And the system as it exists at the moment is that you give that away to buy publication services, which the university then buys back access to the outputs. That's the system as we have it at the moment. You're not just giving this away, you're using it to buy something. And arguably you're giving away the really valuable thing to buy something which is actually a kind of outdated service in many cases.
Okay, so we've got 0 minutes left. But what I'd like to do, just quickly, just ask all of our speakers, first of all, to say thank you for all of your talks this morning. I think we've covered really quite a lot, and we've got lots of tips in there for early career researchers, kind of practical things that you can go out and do in terms of, you know, thinking about opening your own practices. But I'd just like to know, you know, if you're an early career researcher here today and you could do one thing tomorrow, what would that be? Caroline?
Try it. Publish something either publish something open access, and if you're restricted to also publishing toll access, then do both, or set up your own open access journal. The experience I've gained from that has been amazing.
Joe?
What I would do? I would say whatever you do, just speak to people early about it. Speak to your co-authors early, speak to your PIs early about publishing open access.
I'm going to do the cheating thing of taking the internet to the desert island and say, talk to your local librarians. They know all this stuff, they can help you, and they can give you advice, and they would love to hear from you.
Yes. We've got some librarians cheering on the background. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. So lunch is next door, and then we're back at 1:30. We're going downstairs for the 3 workshops. Thank you very much, everyone.